Council. It's April 9th, 2024 at 6 a.m.
PM.
I mean PM. I told you. Did I tell you, John? 6 o'clock PM, sorry. I would like to, before we get into item number 2, I would like to ask the council to add an agenda item to the end of this meeting for a special executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
Move to add, yeah, so moved. She so moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second? All in favor? Thank you very much. That'll be item number 9.
Will there be any action?
There won't be any action, no. It's an update discussion. Okay. Agenda item number 2, public hearing and action on the business license for Black Moon LLC DBA, Black Moon Public House at 142 Main Street for a new city Class B license and state liquor restaurant license. Is that all, everything's all said
Yeah,
and
I don't know if there's
paperwork
any-
is all set?
Anything from the applicant, if you want to speak or no?
Yeah.
Seems to be in line, we're doing good.
There you go. Good. Gonna have to open up a public hearing for you though first, okay? So, sorry. Again, I don't have a gavel, but the public hearing is open. Would anyone like to discuss or comment on this application? Public hearing is closed.
Move to approve the license.
Second.
Wonderful. Discussion? All in favor?
Welcome.
Welcome, congratulations.
In favor and excited.
Good luck.
Well, for the
Thanks, John.
public, can you give us a little information on your business?
The overall business that we've taken over is the old J.J. Newberry's location.
Oh,
So it's called the Newberry Exchange, and there's 3 businesses within the one building. It's the Black Moon Public House. Leslie Harlow has her trio store brought in, and then we have a young guy, Matt Manry, who is starting a vinyl record store. So he has experience with hi-fi and repairs and a little bit of music equipment, and so it'll be a nice combination. So,
wonderful. Well, that does sound
That's
wonderful. That's exciting.
Gary in the middle, so nice hangout.
Great.
Steve's favorite term.
Nice hangout, yeah.
Hang out.
Any live music you think there ever?
Loud? No.
Live.
Live.
Keep that down.
We're not wearing our judgy
We
pants
are
here.
hoping to do some
Very
live
cool.
music as well. We practically not.
Yeah. Oh, well, congratulations.
Sort of
That's
that rock and
wonderful.
roll.
When do you open? Do you have an opening date announced?
We're working on all these licenses, and we'll see when everything shows up and go from there.
All right, well, good luck.
Thank you,
Thanks.
appreciate it. Thanks, Lydia.
All right. Council Order Number 3, request of the Economic Development Director to approve the submittal of a Community Enterprise Program Community Development Block Grant application to fund a downtown facade improvement grant program and to allocate $25,000 of FY24 unallocated TIF funds as matching funds.
Good evening, Council. How are you? Jana Richards, Economic Development Director. We are looking at submitting a full application to the state's Community Development Block Program Community Enterprise Grant. The Community Enterprise Grant's purpose is to help fund either facade improvement grants or streetscape improvements. We are looking to request funding for the facade grant, or a facade improvement that would be administered through the city as grant funding to downtown businesses, and nonprofits are also eligible. We submitted a letter of intent to apply in February, and we received word mid-March that we should move forward with the full application. So just a little bit of talking about why there's a need for this type of a program. The last time this program was conducted in Ellsworth was sometime in I'm looking at Tammy, like 2013-ish, I want to say. It ended in 2013. So it's been over 10 years. It was a successful program from what I understand. It definitely helped a lot of downtown businesses make improvements to their downtown facades, as well as ADA accessibility, because you can use it for improvements to increase ADA accessibility as well, and signage. So in recent years, we heard that it was a successful program, and we also heard that there was a need to bring that program back. And not only that, but staff and I, code enforcement, planning, and myself did a walking tour of downtown where we documented conditions that could be eligible for a project under this grant program. And in the area that we walked, you'll see there's a map included in the packet. Just within that area, we determined about 50% of the properties within that area could be eligible for a potential project. So it was pretty high. So there's definitely a need for it. And the good news is that the areas that could be done are all exterior improvements, but they're highly visible from places where people are walking, even from like the City Hall parking lot. So the facade on Store Street, even though it's not the front facade on Main Street, those facades could also be improved. So really important for downtown visitation, downtown businesses, to improve the look, to increase economic development and business. So there's definitely a need, and again, our letter of intent to apply was found to be eligible and meet the criteria of the program. Kind of looking at this as a bigger project for the city, these funds would be put toward facade improvements through a grant program, but we also have, through the Village Partnership Initiative and through things like the Franklin Street Parklet and additional funding to just beautify the downtown in general. So we could look at it as just a larger scale beautification project, of which this is one component of. So because of that, the city is already dedicating some matching funds through different programs like the Village Partnership Initiative, the Franklin Street Parklet, looking at doing some new banners for the downtown, which would come out of my budget, the economic development budget. The Heart of Ellsworth secured funding in September of 2023 to do some Franklin Street Parklet work, which could be looked at as matching funds. So there is quite a bit of matching funds that, if you look at the proposed budget that I put together, that have already been secured, but this program looks to have a cash match as well, and so that's why we're requesting the $25,000, which is 25% of the $100,000 request to the Community Development Block Grant Program. So yeah, so tonight, one of the requirements is there has to be a public hearing where the public is able to weigh in on the proposed project, and also to get the approval of the council to move forward with the full application, as well as having the matching funds secured, because that has to be done prior to the application being submitted as well.
Do you need me to open a public hearing? Because it doesn't say that on here.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Then I will open the public hearing. Would anyone like to discuss this project? Ask any questions of Jana?
Good evening. Cara Romano, Heart of Ellsworth, Director. I just want to speak in support for this. I just know that there were a few businesses in the downtown that heavily benefited from it, but just also for all the council members and new city manager to also understand too that there was a high turnover of business ownership since last time the city put forth this, and so it would be great for these new building owners to also be able to experience this kind of support from the council as well. So thank you.
Hi, Jennifer Sala. I am the president of Ellsworth Historical Society, and I'm on the City of Ellsworth's Historic Preservation Commission. And I'm sure you guys are all aware that over at the old jail, the Historical Society has been working on a facade improvement. And I want to express, I've been paying more attention now to the masonry of other buildings, and absolutely there is a use for this type of program for other businesses downtown as well. Masonry is extremely expensive and extremely difficult to maintain over these freeze-thaw winters, and increasingly so with warmer winters. So I think that any opportunity we have that we can help these buildings while they're still in decent shape to, do little bits of repairs here and there would be beneficial, not just for the business owners, but also for our economy in general. And like Jana was saying, with the curb appeal and with just the general sense that visitors will get from our city with this funding. So I strongly encourage you guys to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Close the public hearing. Does the council have any questions of Jana, or comments? Motion?
The 25,000 match grants, you said there were other city programs already in place whose funds could be used as matching funds?
Yeah, so if you look, there was a memo that I had prepared for the finance committee, which I'm looking for right now. There's a proposed budget, so it shows that some of the matching funds have already been secured, but those have been put toward, as cash match toward those programs. So like the Village Partnership Initiative planning phase, we put a $50,000 match toward that project. So while it looks good because it's inclusive of a greater project as a total, we still need to be able to show that we have put a cash match towards this project in particular.
But it just means it sort of fits within this wider conversation of
Absolutely. So the
beautification.
total funding that we said has been either secured or requested for this greater project of streetscape improvements as well as facade improvements is a total of $188,000, of which we're asking for $100,000 for this grant. So, and $5,000 of which is Heart of Ellsworth, and then through our funds, we would have put $50,000 toward the Village Partnership Initiative, which is would be significant streetscape improvements through a planning process. And then, the $25,000 being requested tonight, and then $8,000 as a total was secured last budget season that I put toward Franklin Street Parklet and other streetscape and beautification projects in the downtown and the city, just as a whole.
Any other questions?
Could you put into terms, if this grant is awarded and this project goes through, do you have a feel for what Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth is paying? You're mentioning $180,000. How much of that is Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth paying for?
So, let's see.
Assuming you got the grant.
Well, so the majority, so all of this funding, the matching funds that come from the city are tax increment financing dollars.
Right.
So they don't actually come out of the general fund. So
Right.
they don't actually affect the tax rate to Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth, as you say. However, they are city funds, and so we are obligated to utilize them toward economic development, of which these projects all fit within that scope. Out of the TIF funds that are the city's TIF funding, $25,000 that's being requested tonight, $8,000, and then the $50,000, but that was a match to another program where we're getting, was it $100,000?
Yeah, but
Or 50.
10,000 of that is from general fund.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, the only portion of this that's coming out of the general fund is $10,000 out of that $50,000 that was secured back in November of 2023.
So it's a real bang for the buck.
Yes, I mean, if the total project cost is $188,000 and, we are getting grant funding for more than 50% of the entire project.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone else?
Move to approve the submittal of a Community Development Block Grant Community Enterprise Program application to help fund a downtown business facade improvement grant program and to allocate $25,000 of the financial year '24 unallocated TIF funds as matching funds to the $100,000 requested state CDBG funds.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jana.
Thank you, great work.
Yeah,
Thank you.
really
Good
great.
luck.
I look
Assuming
forward to it.
it goes through the grant, when can businesses expect to, or owners expect to?
I would
apply?
say, just to be safe, this fall. Yeah, because who knows how long it's going to take them to review the applications and come back to us. And then there's the whole process of actually getting the funding, even once you're awarded. We'll put together a committee, so I will hope to have representation from the Heart of Ellsworth, representation from downtown businesses, representation from the council, and then there'll be some staff on there. And we will, it's up to us to come up with the guidelines for the grant program. So it has to fit the criteria where you're eliminating what they consider a blighting condition. So that could be like rot, bowing brick is one of the conditions. So they give you a whole slew of what type of condition would need to be mitigated. And then, but we get to design it and we get to administer it, and it will be a cool process. Yeah. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item number 4, Council Order 040901, request of the fire chief to apply for a FEMA Safer Grant for adequate fire and emergency response program.
Good evening, Council. Scott Gillero, Fire Chief. Today I come to you asking to apply for this staffing grant. It's specifically designed for the hiring of firefighters. Back in 2021, we applied for the same grant, but we were not selected. However, we were selected for volunteer recruitment and retention. So we've been working through that process with area communities. Part of the reason why we applied in 2021 is the council at that time was moving forward with plans for us to eventually take over EMS. And so we've been gradually going through the process of doing so. In turn, we've bought an ambulance. However, our staffing hasn't changed. So what we're asking for this year is to redo the grant for 8 firefighters. That would add 2 firefighters per shift. And that would give us the capability to have 2 people dedicated to the ambulance, but it also makes sure that that engine downstairs has the correct number of people on it. Again, the goal is to make sure we always have coverage for any call that comes in. Now, we know that if we run multiple calls, we're always going to have some difficulty with it, but the plan is to ensure that we have the staffing to continue to move forward with this EMS plan that the city has put us on. So that grant request, it equates to $2.5 million over 3 years. It's a zero match grant, so we do not have to cost share anything, which in previous grants, there used to be a 60-30 split. For the next 3 years, if we're approved, there would be no cost share from the fire department. The only time that we would have to pay additional money is for overtime that's incurred outside their regular shifts, and then the city would have to cover that expense.
I think I remember from the budget hearing that at the end of that 3-year, when that sort of their funding sunsets, we would have enough funds coming in from the EMS service then to.
We would hope so, as long as we have moved forward with the additional capital that requires a second ambulance and everything to be able to fully take over EMS. At this point in time, that revenue would not be there because we still are contracted with Northern Light for however long we continue that contract. But we can't add additional EMS capabilities until we have the personnel to supplement it.
Do you have enough gear for the additional firefighters?
We don't. We would have to put that into a capital improvement plan. The difficulty is.
It's not part of this grant, it's just
It is
for
not.
staffing?
No,
Okay.
no. The other safer grant it was, but for full-time firefighters, it's not.
So that will definitely be something we'll have to look at in the
Yeah.
budget and.
I can tell you that evaluation for this grant is in June. We would find out no later than September 30th, because they have to award by September 30th. So that would be the time frame that we'd be looking at.
If, let's assume you get the grant, and then you're able, when would you think you'd be hiring those new positions by?
From the time we're awarded, we would put it out and start the hiring process. That hiring process typically takes 60 to 90 days for us to vet all the applications and go through the process. And then, if that was to transpire, we would be looking roughly January 1st to onboard these people.
Thank you.
Is it it's either 8 or none, or would they give you like maybe
They-
6 people? Is that-
They may, depending on their evaluation and our capabilities, they may turn around and lower that number. They won't increase the number,
won't,
they may lower it.
Okay.
But 8's what we need to go.
8's what we need to be able to move forward with full-time EMS.
Any further questions? What would you like?
You don't need a public hearing?
It didn't ask for one on the agenda. Do you need a public hearing for this?
Nope, I just need permission to hit send.
Move to give permission to hit send. Move to approve the request to apply for FEMA fiscal year 23 staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grant program.
Second. Sorry.
Further discussion? Further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
Good luck.
Well, I think he's standing there again, right?
Yes.
Council Order Number 040902, request of the fire chief to apply for FEMA fire prevention and safety grants.
So this builds on what the fire department already does, but we need to expand our capability. So from the fire prevention standpoint, right now, we have a fire inspector, and then we have the guys downstairs, and we want to give them the tools that they need. So we had a smoke detector program in the past. We haven't had it for a while. This gives us the ability, this type of grant gives us the ability to go out and mass purchase smoke detectors and have the ability, if somebody requests one, to do installs. If we go to a residence and they have a bad detector, we're able to swap it out. It builds that program. But we're also looking at a couple other community risk reduction factors, especially with the apartment buildings we have in the area, the workforce housing, or the independent living housing. We're looking at some range top, basically a fire extinguisher type deal that has a drop down. If somebody has a fire on the stove, it immediately drops down fire extinguisher agent, so that we can limit any expansion from there. And, those are our target areas, is those workforce development and senior independent living places, where those are the high-risk ones for us. It also gives us the ability to develop programs for slips and falls, where 80% of our fire responses downstairs are EMS. A good portion of those are fall-related. So it gives us the ability to create some education programs to basically go in and work on developing better avenues to reduce falls. And those do wind up being a lot of our problems, which also results in back injuries on the fire department. So we want to reduce both sides. And lastly is the fire investigation. We do our own fire investigation here unless it exceeds a certain criteria. Then the fire marshal's office takes it. However, internally, we just want to add additional equipment to our arsenal, such as digital cameras and things like that, so that we can do proper fire inspections. If they were ever to go to court, we want to make sure that we're doing things properly. So the grant does have a cost share to it. It's a 5% match. I don't look to do anything more than $50,000. I'm trying to keep it very reasonable so that we can build these programs, but nothing more than we can afford from the cost share side of things, which I can pull out of my budget if I need to.
Any questions?
Could you say that again? What is the size portion? What is the amount of the grant?
So the grant doesn't have a specific amount. I have to go through and I have to basically build out the budget for the amount. for each of those items. And then, like I said, I want to keep it less than $50,000 so that my cost share is less than $3,000.
Okay, that's where I'm trying to get to.
Yes, sir.
So if you were lucky enough to land the $50,000 grant, Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth is gonna contribute $3,000, is that what I'm hearing?
Effectively, yes. Yeah. No more than.
You might have said this and I might have missed it, but the money that comes in for it is mostly things like, or is it man-hour? Or is it humans?
Human hours?
I'm not understanding your
Is
question.
it equipment?
Is it-
It's equipment related, so.
Yeah.
We're looking at purchasing smoke detectors, we're looking at purchasing equipment for fire investigation.
Yeah, okay.
And things like that.
Yeah.
So the
Sorry,
other part gives us the ability to create some programs, but it's hard to put a monetary value into creating a program outside of man-hours. And for this grant, you can't cost share those man-hours back because it's undefined.
Okay. The memo about it says, the goal, if awarded, to have all 8 staff, but that was just probably a typo from the earlier one. You're not hiring
Probably.
8 more people for this.
No, there is no
Okay.
staff assigned to that
Okay.
grant.
Thank
It's
you.
strictly for projects.
Thank you.
I think it's great. You've like identified the top source of at least the EMS calls, and you're working to prevent those, and then are like responding to kitchen fires and things that the smoke detectors and like fire extinguisher agents would prevent. Are those a really high percentage of the
So
fire calls?
in a lot of the senior housing, we're running into cooking incidents. They haven't expanded to that point, but we're having to go in there and evacuate smoke from the building, things like that. So the incidences are on the rise, and we just want to get ahead of this so that if there is an incident that happens there, we can control it before we get there, especially in the unsprinkled buildings. So we're trying to find different avenues to lessen damage to property and people being displaced.
Amazing. Yeah, I wouldn't see why we wouldn't want to do as much of that as possible. Seems like it would save money overall, but it seems more important, like it'd just be safer for everybody.
And it's a solution. I really applaud you for these types of things. I love these kind of programs because there's a need, and instead of telling people there's a need in your building, you need to fix it, you're coming up with a solution to help them fix it. I appreciate that a lot.
If we can get the property owners to follow,
Yeah.
so.
What would you like?
Move to approve the request to apply for the FEMA fiscal year '23 fire prevention and safety grant.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you. I'm just gonna shut this door.
That's great.
So cool.
I need more.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, agenda item number 6, council order number 040903, request of the water superintendent to approve bench scale testing by Woodard and Curran for future water treatment plant conceptual design.
Good evening, Reggie Winslow, Water Department Superintendent. So we are working with Woodard and Curran on a conceptual design for a new water treatment plant. A couple of years ago, we replaced a raw water pump at the plant. And with the funding from that, we have excess funding from that. So we are we're asking to use that extra funding to fund the bench scale testing to test the water qualities and the properties of the water to get the best possible solution for the new treatment plant. Brent Bridges is here from Woodard and Curran, and he can actually delve into that a lot deeper than I can.
This is not for this is for the next one, so don't be scared of it. I can be quick on this one. So Brent Bridges, Woodard and Curran. So this is a little bit of an unusual request, and as Reggie said, we're working on the preliminary design of the new water plant. And so, as you all know, the water plant has undergone some significant, it's in bad shape, as we all know. And about a year ago, the council authorized some funds to be able to do two things: to be able to replace a water pump that had ended its useful life. And the second part of that money was to be able to install a drain in that sump so that when it floods up, we just have to pump it out all the time. And so we're gonna install a drain in that sump, run a pipe, daylight it to the outside. And so that money was already authorized. And so the thought was, since it looks like the water plant project has gained some momentum and some funding and will be moving, the thought was, rather than the pumps installed, rather than install this drain and at this point in time, it would be fine and useful for the next couple of years. The thought was, why not take that money, let Reggie live with that, and reallocate that money for the pilot study? The pilot study is, what they do is, your water is different than everybody else's water, and so you take the water and we send it off to labs, and they use that water, and they use different treatment technologies to test which ones are the most effective for your water. And so rather than bringing people up here and spending a lot of money to be able to do it at the site, we basically do this so we can pilot everything. They can come back and say, these ones work, these ones don't. We can add these chemicals to this to make it work more effectively. And so it's a nice way to be able to say, let's get like 8 different technologies testing your water and give us back some results about what might be the right solution for you. And so even if you sign this, you don't give us more money. I just wanted to make sure that what you gave us money to do 2 things, we're not doing one thing, we're going to do this thing, and it feels like we can limp by another couple of years, with that sump and water in the sump, because, it's better use of the money. And so that's all this is you have to do the piloting, as opposed to ask for more money. Why don't we just use money that you already allocated for this project? And even with this, there's still a little bit of money left in that. And the reason a year ago it got allocated in the way it did, it was an emergency situation. And so it was really to hire contractors that we would direct to get this work done. So that's why the money came in this way. Again, so it was set aside. I think there's like $40,000 left in it in that account. This is 25. We just want to make sure that we're using, with your permission, that money for something else that feels like it's a more appropriate use of the money based on where you are today.
Just because I'm curious, do you take the water from different areas of the city before you send it away?
No, from the lake.
Just right from the lake?
Yep, because we're talking about where, it's not at the end, we're talking about what we can do from a treatability, what the new plant will look like as far as treating it.
Oh.
Yes.
For the new water treatment plant, in theory, when would what are we looking at for a timeline for potential, when you're looking to do that work?
So we're still accumulating funding. We're pretty close. We're pretty close. So let's just say that we were to, by the end of the year, accumulate the funding. We're starting the design now. So a year to design, a couple-year construction. So we're probably looking at 27-ish to be done.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's that way?
26, but 27 is about right.
Well,
Can you go with that sump pump for that long?
So it's just a sump pump that we buy at Hammond Lumber or Home Depot. It's
Oh.
just a little pump.
Okay.
So if it burns out, it's $100, $150.
it's just a pain to have to always be pumping that sump out for the next couple of years, but as opposed to having a drain that just drains it. But he said he's willing to live with it.
This,
Oh, go ahead.
the company, Blue Leaf, the pilot company, where are they located?
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, Cape, near the Cape.
It's
What's it say?
Charlton,
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 yep.
Massachusetts.
Okay. This is like a fairly involved technical lab analysis that,
Yes.
like air water quality on the road.
It's got a bunch of letters and numbers that
Yeah, that's.
There's gotta be important.
Smaller numbers next to the
Some
bigger
sub
numbers,
numbers
yeah.
next to the big letters.
I think if you take the turnpike, I think Charlton is one of those exits you stop at all the way to get halfway through Massachusetts.
That's actually one of my stops on my way.
See, I stopped there too,
It's
Yeah,
a
it
lovely
is.
area.
so,
On 90, it is. This is
yep, it's on 90,
Charlton,
yep.
Yeah.
Is
It's
it the
not
one with the
Charleston,
Panera?
it's Charlton.
Oh, that's Charleston.
Or Charlestown. yeah.
What changed that this isn't an emergency? What I thought I heard you say is this was done a year ago or so as an emergency situation, and now rethinking and going for a long-term solution.
So you had
But
allocated
then you
money.
had said 40,000, and now there's, so I'm not quite following.
I've got to get better on my numbers. So when you allocated the money a year ago, it was to do two things. It was to replace a water pump
Right,
at the plant, which has been done.
yeah,
And it was also to be able to put a drain line in, so Reggie doesn't have to drop the sump pump and drain this all, every time it fills up with water. So we were gonna put a drain pipe in, so like a foundation drain, something like that. So we could drain it, so he wouldn't have to do that all the time. So we'd put a pipe in the ground, daylight it, so it would always be dry.
The water pump is the emergency.
Yeah,
The water pump is the
okay,
emergency.
thank you, because what I
Yeah,
was,
water pump is the emergency. This was just tagged on
While
because
you're
this was an
there.
inconvenience. So they said, let's do these two things. I did that one because it was a really emergency, you needed to buy it. This one was important, but not an emergency. And as time has gone on, as the water plant gets closer, it's like, why spend that money
right,
when you're gonna build a new plant?
Okay.
And maybe it's better to kind of reallocate that money. So, thanks for that.
that was the, yeah, the key was what happened for the emergency, but I get that now.
So at some point, we'll get information back from this pilot program that'll say, here's the best way to treat your water. Do we have an idea of the ranges of, you just add a few more drops of chlorine versus like reverse osmosis, everything, it's gonna be $1 million extra dollars? Or we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it?
They'll tell us the technologies that work the best and how those technologies need to be either modified or as is. Then we come back and we talk about the cost implications of those technologies, you know, as we're doing the design. And so all they'll say is like, boy, this can do it, it's a lot of money, or, you know, this seems like a more reasonable thing. And like I said, all water is a little different as far as how it turns over in the lake, everything else, and what you've got, acidity. And so how you're treating it, where it's going in your system. So they'll tell us, give back recommendations that we'll bring back to you to say, as we're doing the design. The important thing of this is, as we design the plant, it's really important to know what technologies are going in, because not all, they don't fit the same, right? So like, it's nice to know the technology you're using, so you can build the building around it. And so that's why we're doing so much work up front on the technology selection.
I'd say let's just tell them we're gonna pick the water that brews the best beer.
They will all brew beer really well. Yeah.
No further questions.
Anyone else have any questions, discussion? Motion?
I can make a motion. But you'll have to tell me if I'm making the motion correctly. Move to reallocate the drain funds to new water, to
From the highway.
I don't know what to make for the motion.
Pass.
Let me check.
Yes.
Go ahead, Tim.
Division.
Yeah, you
Okay.
take
Move to approve the request of the water superintendent to reallocate funds to bench scale testing by Woodard and Curran for future water treatment plant conceptual design.
Good one. Second.
Can I just ask for a little bit of, so reallocate which funds, just so
Oh,
that
for
it's in
the drainage funds. Yep.
Some
allocated
drains.
last year?
Yep.
Just so that we know, have it, you know, which funds we were going to.
Second.
Further discussion?
Do we need a dollar value attached to the motion?
For $25,000.
Okay.
Do you want to second that one too?
Second.
Do you have that motion? Did you get? Do you understand? Okay.
I can repeat it.
All right, thanks. Okay, further discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 7, Council Order 040904. Oh, that's okay. Request, no, I lost my place. Council Order 040904, request of the Highway Superintendent to approve the revision of the stormwater drainage cleaning by Woodard and Curran to include additional areas desired by the city. You want to start, Adam, while he's...
I'm fooling with this. Let me take this. Can I stand next to my assistant?
Good evening, Council. Adam from Highway Department. So over the past 2 years, well, maybe more than that, the city has realized the importance of upgrading our storm drain systems and mapping them all out instead of having it just the way we were. And, well, while we have been doing that, we've contracted with Woodard and Curran, and Brent is here tonight to give you a snapshot of what they have done. And to do that, several hundred feet of it has been completely plugged, so we need to allocate more funds to do more cleaning so we can continue with the cammering to finish up that section of the project. And then on top of that will be the conceptual designs for the Oak Street drainage, preliminary designs.
On your day was.
Do you want to go get Jason?
No, his Zoom just needs to update. I mean, he wasn't connected to Wi-Fi, so it's just taking a minute.
Adam, could you remind us that preliminary Oak Street drainage program, that needs to be done before the DOT's project up?
Yes,
On
so
that
this
sheet?
is all the downstream drainage that has to be upgraded and repaired before the state comes through and rebuilds Oak Street. Because as of right now, there's no place for that drainage, subsurface water to go. And this, if it's accepted and done, then it will take care of all of that, and as you'll see in Brent's presentation, it'll take care of it for a long time. And the funds have already been secured. This is just us looking to spend them.
A question while we're, I guess, so 2 questions now. How does this compare to the stormwater workshop that was maybe a month ago? Is this an additional 70,000 because of what's appeared? And you say we have the funding secured, we just need to allocate it. So can you remind me, that's
Right, okay.
the funding that you talked about that night?
Right, so it's the same thing as that meeting. The only difference is the cleaning of the drains that was identified.
Right.
We could not camera. So this will be part of that, and we'll wrap it in with that money.
Okay, and I seem to recall it was federal funding to do it. You had several different sources already secured for this.
I believe it's federal funding, but I am not 100% on that.
Okay.
It was a very low interest government loan. Do you remember?
All those.
I would say it was like 8
Grants and loans.
That's what it
and
was, that's the
flows
annual.
through the feds to the state.
Yep, okay. If you want us to look at the PowerPoint, somebody's gonna have to move the screen.
Watch your hands.
Yeah.
Yes, and watch your head. Thank you.
Is that good? So, 2 parts of this, and I'll answer all the questions as far as funding. So with the exception of 3 people in the room, everyone's seen this presentation. And so it'll be new and special for some of you. And it will be like the third time you've seen it for some of you as well. So investigation, so we were hired by the city, a year or so ago to investigate the stormwater system. And what we did as part of that is how you pay for that is the DEP gave you $2.2 million of grant money. $200,000 was specifically towards the stormwater project. $2 million was wastewater, stormwater. It's a little bit flexible as far as how you're doing it. So as part of that, $2.2 million came the city's way as far as grant money to kind of further the goals of the project. And so as part of that, what you did is you undertook, hired us, and we worked with Vortex. So Vortex is a company that goes out and cleans lines and TV inspects lines and then helps us with our analysis as far as the condition of the line. And so I'll walk through this really quickly. So investigations together, so we were there with Vortex doing it, working in concert with Adam the whole time, and said how many, this is the total amount of pipes we inspected, catch basins, drain holes, so the whole structure. So that's what we did, is looked at everything underground. What you'll see here is everything that looks like it's pink is your storm drain system. Everything that's blue is the storm drain system. This is overview of Ellsworth. Is the storm drain system that we were able to investigate and send a camera down and get some information on. So just a little bit about number of structures and pipes and things like that. So what you're doing is red is bad, green is good from the standpoint of, red would be like more defects or things like that to be fixed. You know, something that would be, green would be like, or yellow would be like, looks like it's in pretty good shape, looks like it can continue to function. So we looked at all these areas, 33 different little snapshots of all the stormwater system in town, in city. And so again, number of catch basins and manholes that we looked at, you know, as far as doing it, some evidence of some of the things that needed to be fixed. On pipes, you know, we looked at some of the things that, and as Adam said, we went through it. We tried to do as big an amount as we could, and there were some pipes that were so plugged we couldn't get through. So rather than stop, spend time and money with Vortex to clean those pipes up, we kept them going, took record of the fact where we can go back when it's more cost effective to clean and inspect those pipes as opposed to holding the whole process up. And so as we're going through it, we found and this is places that we'll do open cut. One of the things we did on this is to make sure, working with local roads committee, is the comment was like, hey, if you're gonna do the stormwater work, what streets are affected? So also let us know, like, as we're planning capital projects, we'd like to know what streets are affected so we don't pave them before you do stormwater work. And so we tried very hard to identify the kind of streets that would be subject to the work. And so it looks like we're all working off the same playlist. Model results. So what we did is everything you see here, so here's Bucksport Road, State Street, High Street, everything that's in red, we looked at as far as the study area. So 16 miles of pipe, that many structures, that many square miles. So we looked at all those areas. Not all drainage areas are created equal. And so as you're looking at it, so this is just part of what we did is we looked at 5-year storms, 10-year storms, 25-year storms, and 50-year storms. Question was, what about a 100-year storm? You know, as far as the 6 inches, maybe it's 6.8 inches. It's not that much different as far as really 50s and 100s, and we seem to get a lot of 50s these days and a lot of 25s these days. And so we looked at these storm events, and what you'll see here, and it's a better detail, is like, so this is a pipe, this is a full pipe, this is what they call hydraulic gradient. So like when you see this, that's where it ponds. So when you see that the pipe can't take it, the hydraulic gradient is such that that's an area in town that's gonna pond. What you see here is all these arrows are like, if his, as you're going down through, all these arrows show kind of where the water wants to go. All the blue shows where it ponds. Light blue is a little bit of ponding, dark blue is a lot more ponding. And so as we went through each of these areas, we went and said, hey, how about your pipes? When you're having this is a 5-year stormwater event, so relatively routine event. How full are your pipes? Pretty full. So we just say, not big enough, right? Full pipe, not big enough. And so as we're going down through this, we said, this is an example of, when you look at, this is a 25-year storm, the whole city, what you see is areas that are shaded in blue are areas where the water ponds. And so this is where flooding occurs. And so we said, okay, well, if we're looking at this, then we know that, hey, Cardbrook down here, Mill Mall, down through City Hall, This area, Washington Street, those are some areas that seem to be flood prone, so let's look a little closer at those areas. So down here, which is the project we're gonna talk more about, Mill Mall, Card Brook, and then Washington Street area. So there's different ways of improving drainage, right? You can, bigger pipes and bigger ditches. You can store it, so it goes someplace into some tankage or something and it flows back into the system at a later time. That's another way you can handle, these kind of increases. You can raise up everything. You can raise the road, you can raise things up, and so it doesn't flood as much. You can elevate things. You can flood-proof it, so it's okay if it's like Charleston, South Carolina. They flood all the time, they just go back to work the next day, right? It's flood-proof, right? So you make it so it doesn't put you out of business. You can flood-proof things. And last thing is just, you gotta move a structure, you move some asset. So our work is really on what we can do to better pipe system and better. So this is the area that we're spending the most amount of time in. This is focus area 1. I hope I didn't set the alarm off with just this.
Everyone's.
Oh.
Mine's like that, isn't
This is one of the 3 people who have never heard the presentation. Walking out of the room. So Charlie, you're gonna miss a really important part. I'm just saying. So this is focus area 1. So this is the area you've all seen before. So as far as what we're looking at is, again, everything that's looking like a yellow is looking like an existing pipe. Everything that's looking like a purplish pipe is a new pipe. And so you can see 6-foot pipes, 5-foot pipes, 5-foot pipes, so larger pipes to be able to get the water into the river faster. Other places that we're showing here, and we talked about this before, is areas that it's open swales or drainage. Would love to be able to incorporate that kind of thing to the system and not pipe it. It's beneficial and less costly to do it. This is an older version on this particular one on this project. We also were asked by the city at one point in time to say, hey, if we can't run it down here in backyards and stuff like that, if we had to pipe it in the streets, what would that look like? It's about $2 million more to pipe it in the streets. And the reason is you're fighting gravity. So some of those storm drain pipes are 18, 20 feet in the ground. That's really expensive to put in that deep because you're fighting gravity. And so we looked at that, evaluated that. Again, roadways, these are all the roads that will be dug up in some way, shape, or form as part of this project. And again, we just did the same thing, Mill Mall, just same thing, Mill Mall, same thing there, same thing for Card Brook. And then you're seeing all the green is like where flooding occurs. And we said, from a priority standpoint, and again, impacted roads, so we don't pave roads while we're trying to do stormwater work. And then when we looked at all this kind of stuff, one of the recommendations that came out of this was how we go about it. Sometimes you can slip line a pipe, sometimes you have to replace the whole pipe, so there's a different kind of technologies that you might use to replace some of this. A lot of this is hard because it's a big pipe, so it's really got to be, putting a 6-foot pipe in the ground, 5-foot pipe in the ground, it's pretty hard to do anything other than just put the pipe in the ground. Cost estimates, this is what we talked about before. This is the focus area 1. This is where, as Adam said, it's driving the project because of the work on Oak Street that DOT is going to do that says, that the DOT said, we'll do the drainage, but it's got to go someplace. You need to have it's got to have some place to go into and some place to come out of. So you need to be ready to accept the drainage that will be part of this project. And so that's, I think, what's driving this phase of the project. When we looked at it and said, hey, it's about a $6.2 million project. If you did that alternate roading and dug up the streets to put it there, you had a couple $1 million. I think that the feedback we got from council workshop and local roads was, let's see if we can work something out in those backyards and easements and things like that. It's a much more cost-effective way, and that's the approach that I think we've been given as far as the direction that people want to go in. And again, we just did cost estimates for each one of those. So what you have, I think, is part of this. I think that they have 2 proposals, right, as far as stormwater?
They have one agenda item, so you can present those as you saw.
Because I think you had 2, and so the opportunity, like, if we're here, I'll put everything out there and you can decide from there. So the 2 proposals we had on stormwater that we sent were, number 1, that we would get Vortex back to finish all the work that we couldn't get to the first time, so we've got a more complete picture. So we can update the study, so that at least can be complete. And so with that, we also, Adam had 3 different areas in town that I think they were here today. And so we're kind of combining that as well. And so this would authorize us to work with Vortex, would take that cost and slide it into this project as well. And so that's a $70,000. And again, that comes out of the grant money. And so that is still DEP grant money that's being used for that. And so for that additional $70,000, so that's still into the grant. And so the other part of it was we put together what we, the first phase of this, which is if we were to start survey, geotech, work with easements, start doing the design work, bring everything up to bidding for this part of the project, which that seemed like the priority for the city to be able to do, is how we'd start that process knowing we've got kind of the deadline of DOT there. And so what the other proposal I have is to be able to do everything from, like I said, survey, geotech, working on easements. The other thing I should mention on this is it's not just a stormwater, because when you're putting these big pipes on the ground, conflicts with water, conflicts with Mike, and so it's a good thing that Adam and Mike and Reggie all get along, because there will be conflicts along the way with utilities and decisions about how we reroute some things as we're going. And so as you're going through it, there will be, and we've carried some money in there for those kind of replacements as well. So it's a stormwater project, but we're taking attention to the other utilities that are in the ground that need to be changed or modified. And it could be that the pipe's perfectly fine, but the 5-foot pipe takes precedence over the 8-inch pipe, and so we need to do some things around that. And so it's also part of picking up all that survey and information to be able to put that forward. And so it brings you right to a final design. And again, I've put in there, like, I think at least 4 meetings with the city, 2 public meetings, because I think when you're doing this kind of work, it's good to have the public come in and see what the impacts might be to them as far as putting this forward. So I've got, I think, 6 meetings in there at various times to be able to review this and go through it. And we brought it up, as we typically do, just to bidding the project, and then, because we don't know the timing, or if it's overlapping with some other projects, that might be some efficiencies and stuff, and so that's the, have I done too much, or is that quick? That's good.
So you're asking for the 600 and, what did I say? 600 and,
625 and the
625,000 plus 70?
In the 70. So 70 comes out of the grant. So it's I do a little spreadsheet as far as capital projects, and the one thing that's been nice over the last few years with the city is, because we've taken a little larger view as far as, at least from stormwater and water and sewer, kind of an overall strategy as far as how to make these things go together in funding. And so the $70,000 still comes out of the grant, and 625, there's about $530,000 of grant money left over, should you apply that money towards it. And then you've got the loan that you approved, the 1% loan of $8,600,000. So some combination of those two things, 625.
So if you guys don't mind, so the original funding for the project that you just are completing with the extra $70,000, that money's all been used up? That original funding? Or
More than that money.
Well, the
200,000 out of the 2.2 million
Right.
was 280,000 for the first,
It was for this first project?
so the first investigation that they did, and then this 70 is in addition to that.
So you have, of the original 2.2 million, with authorizing the 70,000, you have $551,000 of grant money, $551,184 of grant money left. Just straight grant.
Out of the ARPA money.
Out of, what was the original grant money?
The 2.2.
The 2.2 million was all grant?
Yep.
Yep.
And we have 500,000 of that left, 551, 184 left
After you authorize the 70.
after the 7.
After the 70, you have 551, 184.
And you're saying we can either tap into the remainder there and/or that low-interest loan?
Yes.
We should use the grant money up first,
The-
though.
Only thing, well, the only thing I'll say on that is I would want to work with the city on the best leverage. I don't think we're done asking for money on the stormwater. Michelle's given me that, I've seen those eyebrows before. So, the only reason I say that is, so you could say like, hey, let's just put 551 of grant money towards it, we'll use the rest of the loan to make it happen. I would say I'd like to work with Ann a little bit on finance, and the reason I say that is that we're in the process of potentially going after another earmark for Ellsworth. So, because Mike got his with High
I don't
Street.
know, you gotta be careful how you play that.
Well-
I'm not trying to interrupt, I'm just saying, the 2,200,000 was dedicated to stormwater.
Yep.
The 2 million was dedicated to sewer, and if you're gonna take it, you take it. All I'm saying is, you better make sure you're on board with Brandy and everybody, that the money they allocated for sewer work is now going away from sewer work. Because the money that's allocated for the 8.6 is not gonna go to sewer.
That's why I'd rather have the 551 hold in place for Mike and not spend that. I'd rather have you spend your 1% money on this for that reason. And another reason is, if we go after the earmark, and I didn't mean to say that about Mike, so we have the earmark you got a couple of years ago for the High Street pump station was 1.7 million. Last year, you're getting $2 million of earmark for the water plant. And so you can't go for wastewater or water anymore, but because you've got stormwater, you know, what we'd like to do in the next couple of weeks is put in an earmark for a stormwater grant. And so it just feels like it, and that's why that's my hesitancy. So like to be able to say, if you approved it, I'd like to wait a month or so before we get it executed, so we can kind of sort out the earmark and everything else. That make sense? No.
I just have some concern about approving the additional 625, because it wasn't advertised either. It just shows on, it was just for the stormwater drainage cleaning, the additional, it doesn't have anything about this. So, I'm not sure.
I would agree. It was in the package,
So,
but it wasn't on the
and I
agenda.
know that I believe at our next meeting, they're talking about reallocating some of those $8.6 million funds. So I think I'd rather have all of that squared away before we did any of the other
I'm sorry,
stuff.
Tammy, that's not reallocating 8.6.
Oh,
So-
well, it's some funding that we're gonna be
But
doing.
even, so, but I agree with you, because I'm sitting here trying to figure out this money.
Yeah.
And where it's going, and you're saying it's supposed to go to sewer, and you're saying it's going to stormwater, and where did the other 700, $1.7 million from this grant go if we only have 551? I would really, before we,
We need a chart.
well, I know, but
Quick
hold on a second.
explanation.
If we could have, instead of doing it in a meeting like this and everybody hollering out numbers, is it possible for us to get something that says, this is the funding? Because like, where would the 675,000 come from?
Yeah.
We really need to have, and I've been asking for this, we need to have some idea of what we have for funding and what it's used for and where it's going. I know we got a debt service thing, but it was like this long on this much of a computer, and I couldn't read it. If there was something that we could get, I would feel much more comfortable doing this.
Brent, when we had the stormwater drainage workshop, you had a little sheet, remember, that he showed
Yeah,
us?
yeah.
That I think had those numbers, like where the grants, yeah, maybe it was that,
Was this?
yeah.
So, not a part, but if I can, go through this.
Yeah.
I get my,
Can we print that off? Probably can't print that.
get back to
Thank you so much. Let me take a couple minute break.
So it's presentation style. Can you see it?
Yeah, we'll take a few minute break while she gets us some information.
So we went to Savoy's.
Yeah.
Me neither. I'll have to remember that well, for the
We're still on recess.
Oh,
Just went back on. We're back on? All right, we're
We all
live.
set to go back? All right, great. Thank you.
sorry for so much confusion. I won't promise it'll be the first time, but, so in order to track all this, projects, where the funding comes from, you know, and we've been working for the last 6 months or so with the city about trying to track everything. And so what you'll see is, you know, like Water Street pump station upgrade. $2.4 million worth of work. That's the one that just got completed. And so you got $500,000 for Northern Border Regional Commission for that work. You have a general obligation bond that was like 1.3 million, of which 1 million of that went towards that project, because that was the original intent. And so the balance is Of that $2 million that you got, grant money, Mike works really well with Brandy Pierce at DEP, and Brandy had said that Mike could use some of that money towards the balance of the Water Street project. And so on Water Street, it ended up being like, if you end up, it's $1 million of your money, it's $500,000 of Northern Waters, it's $870,000 of the DEP grant money. So Water Street, follow me? High Street. High Street, pump station upgrade, $2.2 million project, not quite as big as Water Street. You got the congressional earmark for that. So you got a grant of $1.77 million for that project. In order to get that project, you have to spend 20%. Comes with a little bit of a string. In this particular, because of when we wrote the grant application up there, we had High Street in it, along with stormwater projects in it. And so what you're doing is you're using that 428 of grant that came with that towards your match share of the High Street pump station project. So we got a little nuance there because the High Street pump station project came in a couple $100,000 on the budget. So at some point in time, we've got to, if you don't spend this, you don't get all of this. And so we've got some work to be done, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing to work on. So right now is, High Street was this, you got this from your earmark, and this is the balance of that $2 million that's still being used. So we got 870 here, you got 428 here is what you use it for. Biosolids evaluation, that we haven't done the work. That's just a placeholder, working with Mike back and forth as far as with what he might do, new centrifuge, that work, we just put it in place. But they did give you last year $375,000 of grant money in order to evaluate and study what that looks like. We haven't executed or done anything on that. There's too many other things we're working on, but so that's grant money as well that we've put in there as far as coming from DEP. Yes.
So the 375,000 is outside of the 2.2 million DEP
Yes.
grant. But the other things, 870,000, 428,000, are from inside that $2.2 million.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I've tried a little bit, Casey, to try to, on this piece, with my notes and my asterisks and everything else, to try to kind of see where the money goes, to try to follow it. And so that's part of that. Stormwater evaluation system, as far as, the $208,000, the $200 that was dedicated for that, this is the kind of the balance of that, with the $70,000 that you approved, or might approve tonight, to kind of finish that up. When we're talking about these two projects, stormwater and sewer, the 7.6 and million, that's basically the 8.6 million of low-interest loan that you've got. It's not dedicated to anything at this point in time. So it's just hanging out there from DEP, 1% money, that isn't targeted to anything other than general, right? We haven't picked a project to put it on. Coming over to the other side, Surrey Road water replacement, total project cost. What we've listed is all of the grant money, or principal forgiveness money, or loan money that's coming from the drinking water program towards that project, to fund that project. Oak Street, we have a placeholder of $4.5 million out there for Oak Street. At this point in time, we don't necessarily know if there are sewer problems on Oak Street that need to be addressed. If they are, then we can take some of that, balance of that $2 million to address it. But Mike's evaluating, the sewer system to see if there are some things that need to be done on that to be able to do so. If we, to be announced, it's like when we determine it, we'll use some of that balance of that $2 million towards that effort. On the stormwater, what we've said is it's kind of included in item 5. It's like overall, whatever happens under our stormwater project and things like that. So it's stormwater on Oak Street is whether DOT's taking care of it or you're doing it as part of your project. It's kind of included there. The only thing that has been on the water line replacement, the drinking water program gave you $1.7 million for the water line replacement. that it's a combination of principal forgiveness and loans. And so that has all been set aside and already set aside for the project to be done. When we get down to new water plant, budget $13.8 million. What we've said is the $2 million is the recent notification you got that you were successful in the earmark that took a year to get processed, that you submitted about this time last year, but it just got approved a couple of weeks ago. And so that's $2 million worth of grant. You also have $300,000 worth of grant, and then a $2.1 million worth of grant and $3.9 million worth of loan that they gave you towards the water project, so that you have a balance of $5.5 million of money you've got to go find for the water project. So the two ways we're approaching that. The drinking water program has already told you they will give you that money at the same proportion they gave you this 3.9 and 2.1. They're going to give that money to you. So in the meantime, what we're doing is that on behalf of the city, we also submitted a Northern Borders Regional Commission application that will go forward to be able to get a $1 million grant. And so in a perfect world, you might get that $1 million grant and not need quite that much from the drinking water program. And so that's, again, just continuing to try to kind of do this. And when we talked about the reason that Reggie felt confident enough about continuing to pump out his son, where we went, is because it looks like the water plant's becoming a reality, and so it's getting closer. We're starting to get some real money towards it. So again, Northern Border, if they give you $1 million, you've been asked to do the next phase of the application. If you do that, then that'll come off that 5.5, so your needs would be. But it's all set. The drinking water program has already told you they'll give you the money. And so you actually have all the money you need for the new water plant. It's just a question of, can we get a little bit more grant money in the process? And I think lastly is high pressure zone. There's a big need out there. All we've done is studied it and evaluated it, and you got a grant to be able to do that. And so that we try every few weeks to kind of update that project list as things are happening to see where it's in motion, where you're going to fund these things, what are grants, what are principal forgiveness, what are loans. That's as short as I can do it.
No, there's one piece that's missing from that was asked about earlier. So on the 15th council meeting, the general obligation bond that we took out to fund Water Street.
Thank you, Mike. Right here.
I came to you guys about it earlier, and we talked about it in the budget workshop. So we're going to take more money out of that DP funding, the 2.2. We're going to take $340,000 and use it additionally towards Water Street to finish Water Street. And that way it allows us to take the general obligation money, which doesn't have the restrictions of how to use it on wastewater. Now we're going to move that to the High Street DOT project so we don't have to borrow any more money to do that project. And it's probably a much better interest rate. So that's the piece that's missing out of that.
Thank you, Mike. And the reason that is, DEP will not, we asked them, they will not let you use any of their money for raising the frames and rates.
On the DOT project.
On the DOT project. And so we kind of said, okay, well, you will pay for Water Street, pay for a little more Water Street, that frees up that for you. I know it's confusing.
So that's where the money you're talking about is missing, Michelle. That
Okay.
extra money.
Okay.
Questions?
Brent, how long have you been working with the city of Ellsworth?
25 years, 30 years? I don't know. It seems like 30-ish maybe.
He was here when I got hired in 2005.
We're on that interview, yeah. It's worked out so far. I think about 30.
So tonight, the decision that we're making just tonight is to add $70,000 from the 2.2 million DEP funds to bring Vortex back and do more of the robot looking.
Yes. And the other piece will go into a future dedicated.
Say, Brent, we have to have a special meeting for the drinking water fund, $6 million loan, because we got a letter from the drinking water program saying we have to accept it or decide if we're gonna accept it by May 1st, and that April 2nd, so not good timing for our council meetings, yeah. So,
Yes,
we could add to that meeting.
yes. You definitely want that money.
Yes.
That's very good.
I would like to have that money, please.
Yes.
Other questions?
Is that the treatment plant loan?
That would be the water treatment plant.
Yeah, it's this, right there. That stuff that's right there.
The 3.9, the 2.1, and the 300,000?
Thanks for having me up so long, and I'm not done because Mike is coming up next.
I've got mine to watch.
So I'm assuming that we're gonna continue to reference like where the money's coming from on ongoing projects. You had mentioned a couple of things that aren't in writing that would be helpful as we move forward. One is like, you mentioned a project is complete. So it would be helpful to know, like, has it started yet, or what's the start date, when was it completed? Is it in the mix? It's just helpful for context for us. And the balance, I was trying to figure out through the conversation, is that a balance left over because it's too much money, but that's the balance to be raised.
Yes. You don't have any sort of funding at this point in time.
Okay,
So
so
that's, yes.
just to rename that column heading, the last one, instead of balance, like balance to be raised or whatever.
Money
to-
needed.
Yep. money
Balance
needed.
to fund.
Balance to fund,
Right.
yep.
Whatever it is, so that when we glance at it a month ago, a month from now, and try to remember this conversation, at least we've got those things for context. And it seemed as though you were referring to numbers that weren't yet in the chart, but will be soon.
I think I tried to put them all in there, and so I
Okay.
tried to like here, that's the 2 million, the 200,000, 8.6, and try to do a note or something like that.
Yeah, I was able to follow, the footnotes are good, that was helpful. So maybe just those two additions, just so that, again, when we pick this
Yep.
up in a couple of weeks, and I'm sorry, I'm not gonna read this again between now and then.
Right.
Just so we've got the context, that would be,
No, those are good points.
make it easier to pick it up again, thank you.
Any other questions on the cleaning?
I'm sorry?
There's no need for both.
Yeah, do we need to make a motion for that? So, okay, so move to approve the addition of $70,000 from DEP.
ARPA. The DEP ARPA money.
It's DEP ARPA to complete the Vortex survey.
Yep.
Anybody?
Second.
What?
Sorry.
Village.
Charlie.
I want it. I need to get it out of that car, I guess. I can have it if someone stops beeping.
Further discussion?
Question on when we'll be seeing all of this again. Is this whole presentation with phases 1 through 4 gonna come back again soon?
On the stormwater,
Yeah.
I would think when you put it on the agenda, I'll bring it back as far as number 1. And then I would think I would bring it back as far as if the city were able to secure some additional funding to be able to advance some of the other ones. But I
Okay.
think priority, focus area 1 is the priority right now.
Right. So I have a question that goes all the way back to the workshop. Because I may not look at the papers anymore, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, I think of stuff. Can you go back, are you able to find the map that showed focus areas 1, 2, 3, 4? And remember that night we had the neighborhood of Fletcher Street, I
Yes.
think, there? Maybe it was even on the walk home that I realized, if I understand it correctly, that workshop, even though it was called the wastewater workshop, that was about capital investments. And I think, Adam, if I understood you correctly, what you explained was the work that needs to be done for the flooding that's happening on Fletcher isn't part of capital planning, that's something that you all would do as part of operations. Does that sound at all familiar?
No, that's not what you said. There's
This was the
major,
workshop.
there's major planning, but
Right.
then there's capital fixtures. And we're gonna do those in coinciding with each
So
other.
if you go back, maybe I can explain it better with the map. Do you remember at the workshop over in the other part of the building? There was discussion about there were issues in that neighborhood, but it didn't rise to the level of this. There was another way that you could address those problems. It's the big blue
Yeah.
The big blue.
to the
blob,
right of
Yes.
focus area 1. And I thought the clarity I got was that isn't a capital process that we're talking about here, but you had another way to address those issues.
We were going to do some ditching and maintenance, culvert replacement as part of our yearly operations, not as a capital goal.
Right, and I came into the workshop as looking at it as all stormwater, and then realized percolating through, you were talking about specifically the capital projects. They came because the theme of the workshop and the issues in their neighborhood.
Right.
But you do have that in your work plans to be able to address the flooding they were talking about.
To help.
Yes, and you were clear
Right,
that you wouldn't do all of it, but that there was some work you could do within your normal work plan to address their plans.
There was also some discussion, I think I can help, of needing to have an area where the water below that ponding would clear
Right.
first before they could really actually fix it. But there was
But
talk
that,
about
and the High
fixing.
Street would help that,
Mhm.
yeah.
But there
Okay.
was talks about helping a little bit, at least until we
Right.
got there.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
that's what I remember. The idea
Yep.
was we have to start down at the river and
Yeah.
move up toward them.
Right, but that there was something that you'd be able to pick up to help in the meantime, just outside of the big capital investments we're talking about. Okay, thank you.
Still need a motion to vote.
Motion seconded, you were at discussion. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
We'll,
I just have one more question though. So this 625,000 that's in our, that we're not voting
Focus
on
area
tonight,
one.
the focus area thing, that's coming back with additional ideas of where the funding's coming from,
Yes, most likely it's out of the loan,
out of a loan, okay.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
which is for stormwater work, so most likely out of the 1% loan.
Okay.
Is it on next week's agenda, or no, we'll have to add it to the May
It might have
agenda?
to be a special meeting.
It'll
for
okay, that's what-
another item
Yeah.
that we'll just add to.
Yeah, okay,
Could we add
yeah.
it via proclamation, like today if we're prepared? I guess it wouldn't be guaranteed to be on there, but.
I think we ought to, because we need to advertise it.
Yeah.
If it's a borrowing, I hate to add anything onto an agenda, we really need to let the public know that we're
We'll
borrowing.
figure it out, we'll get the timing and.
Yeah.
Maybe we can time it with a workshop. Do the budgeting workshop.
Boy, that would be good.
Yes.
Well, you're saying there's something else we have to do on that special
Yeah,
night.
there's something that, for time restricted, that we have to get done.
Yeah.
We have to accept the $6 million loan.
Yeah.
By May 1st, we have to, it's not accept, it's like say that we are interested in.
We have a capital workshop 17th, if that
And that-
interests you.
That's May.
And that's for the treatment, the water treatment plant, okay.
That may work.
I feel like I'm-
We meet a lot.
Losing your mind?
Okay, agenda item number 8, Council Order 040905. Request of the wastewater superintendent to submit construction and inspection services by Woodard and Curran for the High Street Pump Station upgrade.
Good evening, Mike Harris, Ellsworth wastewater superintendent. So, as you are aware from the previous meetings, we awarded the High Street Pump Station project. Apex was the lowest bidder, and so not part of that contract bid was the oversight and engineering services during the construction phase of the project and then the post-construction. So this would include having a person from Woodard and Curran on site during the construction, making sure they're following the plans, making sure they're not taking any shortcuts. Handling construction meetings throughout, pay rec, and financial processes throughout. And then, post-construction, putting together the punch list, making sure the contractor's following the punch list. typical things that the engineering firm would handle for you. And so I'm simply here asking, and the money is coming out of the project money, it's not money out of my operations budget or anything of that nature. It's money that's already allocated, which we have too much money right now anyway, which you don't usually hear people say.
Don't say that too loud.
So it comes out of the $2.2 million?
Either the 2.2 or the 1.77 earmark, we have a couple of different funds, pots we can take it out of. So I'm just asking you to approve the construction oversight proposal from Wood and Kern.
Did that go to a bid? Did it need to go to a bid?
No, I mean, Wood and Kern did the design work, all the pre-work and everything associated with it. I mean, with all of our projects, typically, we flow through the same, because it'd be difficult to bring another engineering firm in that didn't design it, and then you have someone that has less historical knowledge of the city, less historical knowledge, because, you know, they've been with us for 30 years. So onboarding somebody that does, you know, that would have to come in, understand us, understand the project, understand what their design looks like, just becomes difficult. So.
It also creates a bit of a conflict, critiquing someone else's work.
And so it's just really about efficiencies, right? If you have a new engineer come in and they look at the design and then they say, well, I think you should have done it this way, then it can impede the progress of the whole situation. So, you know, really being efficient, and really, honestly, you want the best outcome possible for the city. Like the Water Street pump station came out fantastic, and it came out under budget. And so that money's gonna roll forward. And so we're gonna look to do the same thing with the High Street Pump Station project. You know, and then we'll, you know, if the dewatering project happens, then that money and all will carry forward, and we'll hope to carry on that positive flow that we have going on right now in the wastewater.
Any questions? Motion? Tammy?
Yes. Move to approve the construction and inspection services in the amount of $155,000 to Woodard and Kern for the High Street Pump Station upgrade to be funded from the High Street Pump Station upgrade funding funds. ARPA money? Is ARPA money?
Yeah, so DEP ARPA money.
DEP ARPA money, okay.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 9, move into executive session, and I'm going to have to get you the one MRSA, I can't remember which paragraph.
405-6A.
A? Thank you. Thank you.